Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is the third window release of Melancholic. This is a film from 2018, yes, a modern film, directed by Seiji Tanaka, starring Mibuki Yoshida, Yoshitomo Izuzaki, and Yoji Mingawa. This third window release contains a behind the scenes, the short film version, and a Q&A with director and cast, which is very funny. This is a film that reminded me a little bit of One Cut of the Dead, but not in any zombie related way. It's kind of in the way that it uses a familiar genre and gives you something else. It's not as surprising as One Cut of the Dead, but the same way that One Cut of the Dead uses the zombie tropes to give you something different. Melancholic gives you a yakuza angle, but gives you something, I think, a lot more. I really loved this film, but it might be something about me, rather than how good the film is. You know, I can understand if people watch it and they just think, oh, that's a good film or whatever, but for me it really elevated itself. I'm going to do spoilers later on, but obviously I'm not going to do spoilers at the start. So it's the basic premise that we've perhaps kind of seen before, of somebody who gets involved with the yakuza, or an aspect of the yakuza lifestyle, and things get out of hand. That's the basic setup that we've all seen before. So we're introduced to the character of Kazuhiko, who's a graduate from Tokyo University, who just about every character asks him, oh, so you went to Tokyo University? But he's pretty much just drifting through life, hasn't really had a job. You know, he mentions during the film, you know, the assumption is you go to Tokyo University, you get a job with a big company, and you know, that's you happy. You know, that's the definition of being happy, making money, and he's never really felt that way. He has a kind of taciturn character who doesn't really express a lot. He kind of grunts and nods quite a bit. So he's kind of just drifting through life. When he's at this bathhouse, he happens to run into somebody he knew at high school, a woman called Yuri, and you can kind of tell from the start that she's interested in him, whereas again he's fairly non-communicative at the best of times. So she kind of cajoles him into going to a reunion where they kind of separate themselves and talk, while this other character, who, as they say, nobody really paid attention to at high school, but now that he's seems to be a famous entrepreneur or musician, they're all like crowded around him, and he now seems important because he's made it, because he's successful, because he obviously has money, whereas the two of them are kind of just, you know, those people in society that have kind of fallen through the cracks. So he gets this job in the bathhouse that he went to, but he stumbles one night he stumbles in late at night, and one of the workers he witnesses killing somebody and then cleaning up the blood afterwards. It's run by a man called Azuma. So he becomes involved and he helps the guy who is killing people to clean up after them and get rid of the bodies. So we find out that Azuma has a debt to this Yakuza boss, Tanaka, the same name as the filmmaker, the writer-director. So he's in debt. So he essentially uses his bathhouse as a killing space for the Yakuza boss to tell his employees to kill people. There's another character, Matsumoto, who's taken on at the same time as Kazuhiko, and he's a bit more gregarious, and the two of them kind of become friends, but Matsumoto is not who he appears to be. And that's probably as far as I'm going to take it before going into spoilers. I just found it, because I kind of identified with Kazuhiko's character as far as somebody who doesn't really get involved with people that much, somebody who doesn't really understand, the whole concept of, make money and that's you happy, or do what everybody says you should do and then that's what it is to be happy, because I don't really believe that either. He lives with his parents, which I don't, but he lives with his parents, and it's a wonderful, because you can tell that his parents do love him and care about him, but we only really see them as a wonderful shot at eating together. He's on one side and his parents on the other side. They kind of engage in kind of banal conversation with each other. Again, they do care about him, but there's just that barrier of expression. It's very much similar to the parents of Winona Ryder and Heathers, the fact that they just talk about banal things that aren't really the things that actually need to be discussed. And, there's an example where they ask him, "Oh, your bathhouse work seems to be getting busy," and he's like, "Yes," and then he asks his dad, "Is your job not busy?" And his mum's like, "Oh, every job's busy." And then his dad's like, "Well, we weren't busy this month, but we were busy last month, and we might be busy next month." And it has this really banal dialogue, but again, you sense it's because they can't really express how they really feel to each other. There's a running kind of thing where the mother always makes too much for dinner to eat. Again, suggesting that maybe, if you actually met somebody or whatever, they could actually have dinner together. So that's just a lovely little device that tells you a lot about his family life without being explicit about it. And again, in this, I'll go into spoilers, but that was one of the aspects later on in the film that really elevated it for me. So, and just summing up, this was Tanaka's debut film, 2018. It's the only film he's done at the moment. Obviously, with coronavirus, that's probably one of the reasons, perhaps, he hasn't done anything else. But I'll certainly be looking out for his next work. Again, it's kind of something we've kind of seen before, like One Cut of the Dead. It uses a genre that we're kind of familiar with, but to me, it just elevated above that for the reasons I'll go into the spoilers. But if you haven't seen it, again, it's another really good third window release. It's shot in that kind of claustrophobic way. You don't really see a lot of sky. Also, the buildings are really kind of close together. Probably the bathhouse is the most open thing that we actually see. Again, it's just a wonderful. It's a wonderful film that, again, with a lot of Japanese films and Korean films, they just take their time. You know, they're not in a rush. Excuse me. They're not in a rush. You know, I'm not being critical or anything, but if this got a Hollywood remake, you know, it would be in a rush to get where it's going. You know, there'd be more action, there'd be car chases, you know, the editing would be cut, 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 cut. Whereas this, you know, the shots that just lets it sit, it's just more measured, and you get to know the characters rather than just bang, 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 bang. Let's get on with it, let's get on with it, which is kind of the more American way of doing things. I just love how it just takes its time, gets to where it wants to go, and then because you're invested, or I was at least invested in the main character, you just go with it. It's a wonderful film that I would highly recommend, but don't be surprised if you don't like it as much as I did, because I'm just weird. So I'm going to go into spoilers now. So again, if you haven't seen the film, go check it out, because I think it's really good. But again, my opinion is not fact. So I'm going to go into spoilers. So as the film progresses, the first guy who has done the killing, he takes Matsumoto along with him on a job, and he's killed. So we're left with Azuma owing Tanaka, but he doesn't actually have a killer to pay off his debt. So Matsumoto takes on the mantle, and it turns out that Matsumoto actually does this for a living anyway. He is actually a hired killer, and Azuma knew who he was when he took him on, but because Kazuhio was taken on at the same time, they just wanted to go through the sham of having an interview for Matsumoto. So he, you know, he tells Kazuhio to get rid of Yuri, his girlfriend, you know, pretty much have no attachments, very much like Robert De Niro in Heat. You know, have no attachments, move out of your family house, get rid of your girlfriend, because you have to take this seriously, and you can't really risk people. And the two of them, despite the fact they're two different kind of characters, one talks a lot more, one doesn't. They kind of form a bond. Matsumoto teaches them the ropes, and a nice kind of touch. Instead of like shooting somebody at the bathhouse, Matsumoto just chokes them to death, just to not create as much of a mess. And Kazuhiko's like, "Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate that." But it gets to the point that Tanaka, sorry, gives Azuma an ultimatum that they either kill Kazuhiko or he gets trained to be a killer as well, because there's so much work to do. So Matsumoto and Kazuhiko decide to kind of free Uzuma, it would actually be better if they just killed Tanaka themselves instead of being his slaves essentially and just doing whatever he wants. So they hatch a plan to kill Tanaka for Azuma. So Matsumoto goes in to kill him, but he finds Azuma has already shot Tanaka, or has he? And it turns out that it's just a ploy to expose Matsumoto, because Azuma went to Tanaka and told him that they were going to kill him. Just kind of get brownie points from Tanaka. So Matsumoto's shot, but Kazuhiko turns up and solves the problem, I'll just say. But to me, where the film really takes off is Matsumoto's injured, and they go with Angela, Tanaka's mall, essentially. And it's like, oh, they're going to take him to hospital, they're going to take him down. And where do they take him? They take him to Kazuhiko's house, to his mum and dad, because his mum, who we don't know, must be a nurse or whatever, because she's got a first aid kit and she deals with Matsumoto. And I just found that to be quite wonderful. The fact that, you know, the only place he can think of taking them is to his mum. So his mum patches up Matsumoto, and there's just a beautiful scene where, again, his parents can't quite express, you know, what's going on. He turns up with this guy who's shot and this girl, and then when Matsumoto kind of recovers a bit, he comes out and he fancies something to eat, so they actually have this beautiful scene at the dinner table. You can tell it's the first time Matsumoto's really been in that situation for a long, long time, because he is a loner and because he is, you know, a professional killer, and he, you know, lives by that mantra of just cut everything out of your life, don't have any attachments and whatever. You know, and he has a meal, he says, during the night when they're sleeping, they're lying in the darkness, he's like, that's the best food I've had for years. And for some reason I just found it profoundly moving, that whole scene about, you know, going to his parents. You know, that's the only place he could think of to go. His mum patches the guy up. They just have this wonderful meal. Again, his parents don't express, oh, you know, what's going on and what's this. It's just they welcome these people into their family. They welcome them in to have a meal, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And again, in this gangster yakuza, you know, killing people in a bathhouse film, that kind of heart, very much like One Cut of the Dead. You're just not expecting that. You know, again, if it was remade in Hollywood, it would be a much more cynical film, and it would be much more, you know, it would just miss out all the characterizations, it would miss out that subtlety, the relationship with his parents that he has. And that to me was quite beautiful. And then because he has broken up with Yuri to protect her, and again, on Matsumoto's advice of, you know, cut her out because, you know, you're putting her at risk. You know, she tentatively comes back to the bathhouse when he has, well, it's been bought over and he's still the manager. He doesn't want to own it or anything. He just wants to run it and just work there, which again is another wonderful little part of it. he just wants to find his niche. And again, this idea of, oh, you need to work for a company to be successful, or make lots of money to be successful, or be happy. As he says in the film to Matsumoto when they're out the night before they're going to kill Tanaka, it's like he never really wanted to be happy anyway, which is just a wonderful line. So she comes to the bathhouse at the end, and tentatively you can kind of tell they're going to get back together. Which again, if you're going to be cynical about it, it's like, oh, it's a ridiculously kind of upbeat ending, but I actually didn't mind the ending, as cynical as I usually am, because again, it's real, it's not like forced. And then we even find out, her little secret about the reason she comes to the bathhouse more often. It's when her gas or her water is turned off because she can't pay the bills or forgets to pay the bills. Again, that's just a beautiful little character bit. So again, it kind of, on like the back of the Blu-ray or whatever, or if you read a synopsis, it's like, oh yeah, it's about killing people in a bathhouse. But the film is a lot more than that, and I think it's a much richer film than the synopsis or the cover would let you believe. Again, it was an enjoyable little character piece, a little thriller, but then I just felt it just elevates when he takes the injured Matsumoto back to his family. Just that level of kind of warmth and heart in the film just made it an absolutely wonderful experience, and the one that I'll be watching again. It's beautifully acted. You believe all the kind of relationships. At times you could argue Kazuhiko's character's, a little bit annoying just because he doesn't express himself, he doesn't say much, he just kind of grunts or nods, but then that's what the character is. I can't really criticise that because my communication skills are very poor. It's just a beautiful little film, which again, very much like One Cut of the Dead, for me at least, kind of defies the genre conventions that it's built in, because it does have just a wonderful heart, and you should go watch it. I'm assuming you have if you've watched the spoilers, but it's another wonderful third window release, and I hope you enjoy it when you do watch it, or if you have. So please let me know in the comments below if you have seen Melancholic and what you think of it, and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying thanks for watching.